One Step Ahead by Lundquist and Beslick.
Hello, this is One Step Ahead Radio, another week, another session. James and myself are here to take you through some of the interesting things we've been experiencing last week and also shortly update you about some of the key developments around the world in terms of climate sustainability and links to business, of course. James, how are you doing today?
Hi there, Sasha. Good to speak to you. Yes, I'm doing well. It's been a busy, good week together. We've been having our Connecting the Dots forum brought to you by Lundquist, which has been going on in Milan this week. So we're full of conversations and thoughts and ideas that we've been discussing. So it's been a full week.
Indeed.
Digesting it all?
Yes, indeed. Exciting and a lot of interesting presentations, people, topics. As usual, most of the sort of things become even more interesting when you have a time to digest some of the content that has been presented. But James, this connecting the dots thing that Lucas is doing, what is that? Could you elaborate a bit on that one?
Yeah, well, we've always liked to, we have a long history, 20 years of doing events and seminars and bringing company practitioners together to discuss around various issues connected to communications and sustainability and all the topics that we usually cover in our work. So this year we've kind of decided to go even bigger and created a whole forum around this with the main event that we had this week in Milan, but also some collateral discussions and seminars we've talked about the implications of the new Trump administration on the global sustainability debate. We had some American journalists here to talk about that with us. We've talked about the trends for universities. We've talked about how foundations are transforming. And then yesterday with the business, we've been talking a lot about and talking with companies, getting actually very interesting feedback around the whole idea of the sustainability value proposition.
Yeah, I mean, exciting, and it's also covering the broad range of topics. But going back to the big forum, which was taking place yesterday in Milano, I mean, this sustainability value proposition, which seems to be, when we talk about it, maybe many people don't understand actually what it means. But it means to take the sustainability value proposition that a certain company has to a level where it becomes recognized by financial markets, but also other stakeholders in terms of value it creates for the business. I mean, you mentioned that in terms of the number of companies participating, but anything that you would like to sort of elaborate a bit more on? One of the companies in particular was very clear on the need for this because it's sort of perceived as a next step in sustainability.
Yeah, and I think it taps into this whole frustration that a lot of companies are feeling today with their sustainability journey, and above all, the sustainability reporting process, which is very onerous. And a lot of companies tend to kind of conflate the two. They think, to do sustainability is to do a lot of reporting and to get the numbers together. And, and they spend a lot of time on that. And in Europe, we've seen this big push in the last period around the CSRD to have more. Even before it was having some mandatory reporting. A lot of other jurisdictions are following on that, and kind of the question that a lot of C-suites and boards and are asking is, okay, but what do we get out of this? How can we actually create value in terms of do things that make sense for our business, that we can actually leverage it in the market? And so we speak to a lot of companies who've made a lot of effort and they've done a lot of transformation. They're in the middle of it. They said, we don't get recognized for that in terms of better sales, being closer to the market, higher margins, or opportunities to innovate, or the whole host of different ways that can play through. And so the sustainability value proposition is the way that you speak to your customers and your clients about why they should choose you or a specific product because of its sustainability, its social or environmental profile, that it has benefits for them. Because normally reporting is about you, and it's about the company in that sense. So I meant you, the company, the reporting company, and it says what you've done and what your numbers are on kind of a big corporate basis. And yes, we had 3 different companies talking about this, which is interesting for me because they come from 3 completely different sectors. We had Vattenfall, who are in the utilities and energy sector from Sweden. We had Poste Italiane, the Italian postal service, which does logistics and parcels, and but also insurance and financial
There's a
services.
big business in Italy. Yeah. They are quite
huge footprint.
Yeah.
And very big impact on citizens, right? The general public. And then the other company we had was Bracco Imaging, which is a healthcare company based here in Milan, and they're really trying to explain to their customer. Their customers are like hospitals and even radiologists, people working in doing MRI scans and CT scans and X-rays, who are saying if you use our products, it helps you to be more sustainable. It reduces your waste. It reduces your electricity consumption because if you can have, so that actually turns into an environmental saving for the user rather than just for you. This company is like the Scope 3 emissions of a lot of hospitals. So they say if you want to reduce, then and it's incredible because the companies kind of needed to get those numbers, because very often the corporate numbers are kind of corporate level, but like specifically for one product or one service, and say if you use this one compared to the market standard, you get these benefits and you get these advantages from your sustainability point of view. And that was nice because there's a win for the company, there's a win for the healthcare organization or the hospital, but there's also a win for the patient. They get to treat more patients, or the patients get exposed to less, fewer drugs. The public benefits because there's less, for example, to have less pharmaceuticals go into wastewater through people when they've finished having a treatment. It goes straight through and into the wastewater. So there's all kinds of ramifications. But it's a bit of a Copernican change to think in these terms from your customer's point of view rather than from your own corporate perspective. And that's got to be also interesting story to tell to investors, right?
Yes, I mean, there's certainly, because it's interesting to participate in these kind of things, because as an investor, you actually realize, and I mean, these are the things that we are thinking about every day. We want to find or get information that can add value to our investments, and whatever we can get that can enhance the ability for valuation to increase, that we have the access to information that can help us do valuation more properly, the better it is. Now, the touch points, if you think about it that way, the corporates have, especially in a listed equity space with the outside world, one of the touch points is sustainability report. And this is very much the inside out sort of a perspective that company projects. The other touch point is, of course, what we have access to through rating agencies. And we don't take that for granted. I mean, most of us have different providers and we can combine the information from these providers to get a better picture. But what is the big touch point issue is the fact that these companies are not really transforming, or I would say using the sustainability value prop they have linked to their business in a way how to enhance their value towards the external stakeholders, financial markets being one of them. And I think Bracco case was very interesting because what the gentleman on the panel that was taking place was reiterating is the fact that they are linking this very clearly to the products, and they can show on a product level that is purchased by healthcare institutions around the world that this is this is the value that we can create for you when using our product from a sustainability point of view. It was really, really interesting. Yeah.
And the nice point is that they're not niche products. Yeah, maybe, what was discussed in the panel is not, they're not products that you and I are familiar with, they're very specialist things that, are needed in hospital treatments. But the thing is, for this large company, they're talking about their main products. They're not talking about, oh, we've got this nice niche, like a green product
Yeah.
line that we've got, right? Which is kind of, again, sort of not going to hit the bottom line if they start convincing some of their customers to say, oh, well, you got this niche product. It needs to be kind of, the sustainability value is really driving through your main through your main offering. So that's another thing I think I took home as well, and how it connects to the broader. I mean, all three speakers were talking about how these kind of logics connects to big transformations going on within their broader markets. It's not like, I came up with this nice little cute sustainability thing that I can push to clients. It's like,
Yeah.
our industry and market is shifting around this, and we need to be positioned and have something credible to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's also maybe important to mention that all the work that has been done so far by companies in the space of reporting, I mean, including the latest CSRD debate, which is sort of the tool to showcase the compliance or governance capacity of the company to manage its risks and opportunities, are still very important, because without that, you cannot build or draft or forge, your value proposition. So in my sort of a world, how I see it, it's more like the SVP value proposition work that companies need to work with are the natural step to get sustainability more closer to business. Because currently, if you ask management boards and CEOs and CFOs of the companies of the world, many of them will tell you that sustainability is currently just a cost, item on the balance sheet, because they cannot clearly link that to the way how it creates value. And it is a value creator, but companies really need to work on the ways how they can, forge the messaging, and also try to find a way to communicate and see exactly what it is.
Yeah, there's a big decision that a lot of companies need to make today, because reporting is fundamental, but it's not sufficient. And very often, a lot of people get told that if only you jump through all these hoops, then you're going to be all right in the market, and the market will somehow recognize you. But you actually have to, get your reporting and your data and your figures, whether you're having to comply with CSRD or whatever else. But then, that puts you in a position when you can start to say, okay, I can go out and credibly use this and transform this data and to tell a story, to explain the benefits, to pitch myself. I mean, a value proposition is like a pitch to say, this is what we're offering, and this is why we're different, and this is the advantages that we can bring to you because we're a sustainable business.
Exactly. This is where we want to go. I mean, that's sort of the next step in this. But James, there was another very interesting morning session on sports and sustainability, which is a topic that has not sort of gained attention in the world of sustainability. I think in generally, it's very increasing in its importance because of its political sort of the angles, I would say, to global sports, but also because it's tremendous impact on the social issues. I mean, that was very interesting to listen to as well.
Yeah, and what I took away from that, or what I tried to, contribute to that discussion, was the need to have that kind of coherence in sports organizations around sustainability, to be able to focus on a few really key issues and own the agenda around sustainability, because I think those organizations are very subject to other people's agenda. And just say there's a kind of political element. It's very visible. There's a lot of people who take part in it. But then then you say, well, you have to do this, and you have to solve this, and you have to talk about racism problems, and you have to talk about youth unemployment and inclusion, and you have to you recycle your plastic cups, and you have to do this. And I think a lot of organizations feel that they are getting called upon to kind of every week they have to respond to another external issue in some way and give visibility to everything. But then they don't really have that clear vision around what their own sustainability is and how they make a difference to their key stakeholders, which might be fans, it might be the players. I mean, we had a lovely session with wonderful testimonials about the impact on athletes,
Yeah.
the athletes themselves, and in a heating world, and in being an athlete in summer conditions in many parts of the world is going to get harder and tougher and tougher. The impact that has on sporting facilities. So there really needs to be kind of interesting thoughts about what really to prioritize, rather than responding to a lot of the issues that come in. I don't know what else there was that struck you about, or you took away from that beautiful long morning session.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, some of the facts that some of the numbers I've been looking over before that session. I mean, if you now, not everybody loves football, but if you look at the football itself in Europe, I mean, there are about 65,000 games played annually around Europe, and there is an estimate, of course,
the professional leagues, right?
No, it's all in the professional leagues. Yes, that's correct. So it's a lot of games, 65,000 games per year. And there are estimates on the CO2 footprint of a game. And it was particularly related to Premier League, which has a significant amount of numbers that we can look at. So if you multiply that, if you just take that as a proxy and you multiply that, it basically, the equivalent is, 85 million tons of CO2 emissions just generated by football games in Europe annually. It's equivalent to the annual emissions of Belgium as a country.
Wow.
So it is a significant, and we are just talking about one sport, not about everything else. So it has a tremendous impact on the climate issues. It has a enormous impact on social issues, but I think sport as itself also has ability to adopt and change things, and also take on some of these things in a collaborative way. And this is also what was discussed, yes, during the session. Anything else, James, on your mind that you would like to sort of stress today, the day after the session we had yesterday?
No, I think it was very nice and reassuring to hear kind of from so many companies in different sectors and industries who came to hear, and the way they reacted to what we were talking about, sort of the commercial sustainability angle. And it resonates with a lot of people. And it's always interesting to hear from B2B and B2C companies, and listed companies and non-listed companies. It's not just like the domain for the large listed companies with huge exposures. Every value chain has these kind of dynamics, and trying to help even smaller companies and medium-sized companies that have maybe had a visionary journey through sustainability, who have these problems within their industry. And it's very much a value chain discussion. How can I, with my sustainability, working maybe with my suppliers, then bring that to my clients? So it was very sort of reassuring and encouraging that people sort of were getting this message. It triggered all kinds of like reflections on their side, which are quite different. So that was very reassuring.
Thanks, James. I mean, there are things happening in the outside world that are have been reported around in the different media outlets. Maybe we can touch upon some of these things. Quite interesting from discussions, I mean, that we had in Milano on during the conference day. I mean, today there is a big article about the World Meteorological Organization, basically saying that global temperature rise to reach near 2 degrees in next 5 years. I mean, the knock-on effect on this, in terms of the impacts around the world in different regions, will be quite significant. James, I mean, this is something that we've been touching upon in many of these sessions. It seems to be that the report after report is coming out, and the different kinds of organizations, including insurance industry and the World Meteorological Organization, the people are sort of trying to point these organizations that something is wrong, but yet, I mean, it doesn't seem to be that there is too much of an action in the space. I keep
Not at the
wondering,
moment.
not at the moment, but I'm keep wondering if the world sort of a scientific community, including many of us working with this in this field, have failed actually in terms of explaining, educating, about what this actually means, and also, bring people on board in terms of how, what kind of action is feasible. We are in the adaptation age now. Mitigation doesn't seem to be the answer to the questions we have. So I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, it seems strange because when I started following this whole discussion around climate change, it was like more than 20 years ago, and even when we got to the famous Paris agreement, these kind of numbers seemed kind of in the distant future, right? It seemed like, yeah, one day we'll get this sort of like it was all these forecasts, and it seemed distant, and now it's now and it's happening, and we are getting to these enormously important markers. But I took away another thing from the discussion yesterday and the talks yesterday. I think maybe it doesn't meet the headlines, doesn't get into the headlines, but there's a lot of companies and governments making investment plans now that look into that 5-year horizon. Because when you talk about 5 years, that's like an investment horizon. It's not like,
Correct.
oh, well, someday this is going to happen and someone's going to have to deal with it. It's like a lot of business decisions made today are going to have that kind of time horizon. And companies are really kind of thinking about what that will mean for them, and sort of perhaps seeing through the political bluster of the moment and saying, well, actually, where do we need to be? They're actually putting money on the table today that's going to be, it's going to bring things into the world in that time horizon. And so I think maybe it doesn't sort of grab the headlines, but, what we were hearing, for example, from Vattenfall yesterday about making investment decisions through the energy transition, saying we keep on wanting and we want to have from institutions and governments, reassurance and clarity that this is the direction, this is where we're going, because these are the decisions we need to make now. And even Post Italiane is saying the same thing, saying these are it's all part of them. They're built in, they're into our business decisions now. It's not like above all on the climate front. So that's kind of my sort of take on it from just what I've been hearing this week. I don't know, are you more pessimistic about it than me?
No, not really. I'm not. I think we agree on this one, but of course, this is sort of a taken into the context that it's a sort of a corporate context. But there are, of course, other things happening around the world that have, indirect, I would say, tremendous impact or ability to make things worse for us. Although the companies, as you say, they are looking at the longer perspective and they are adjusting or actually adopting, I would say, rather, both their sustainability strategy but their business operations in general. And one of these things that I came across today was the fact that this global military buildup poses basically, according to new research, existential threat to climate goals. It will increase, and this is just NATO, green gas emissions by almost 200 million tons per year. James, these are sort of stunning numbers. And so basically for every dollar invested in a new hardware, there is only a corresponding carbon cost, but also opportunity cost to potential climate action. So the more we are actually investing in rearmament of our world, this part of the world, I'm talking about Europe, but in the same time, the money invested this way not only generate emissions, but actually take money away from other things. It is a political question. I don't know exactly how it's going to be dealt with. And of course, we don't have the numbers from China and Russia in terms of the impact this goes. But apparently, although companies are trying to do what they can and have long-term plans, climate change is impacted by so many different other sectors. And according to the research that is being done on this, the estimated, the sector collectively, we talk about the weapon industry, is responsible for 5.5 of global green gas emissions. James, will weapons solve it? That's my question,
You know, I don't have a positive spin on what that.
No, I know. It's actually sure that. Yeah, I don't think they will too, and I think it's a bit, uh, you know, I would say not premature, but rather panic sort of reactions that many political forces in Europe are reacting on. I think it will be much easier to much better to de-escalate and try to invest resources in something that will be more productive for our societies going forward. But that it is what it is. On a positive note, before we end, it is a fact, although that there is a lot of discussion about this. EU seems to be on the way to reach its targets in time, which is very good, James. It's been reported by Bloomberg in terms of the climate targets that EU has set for 2045, or was it 2040? Nevertheless, it seems to be that Europe is, despite everything, on the way to reach its target, which is very positive, isn't it?
Yes, and that's been a long-term trend, and I think that's very positive and very clear. And I think a lot of work around things that were introduced a long time ago in terms of emissions trading and decarbonizing the energy sector, bring their fruits and carry on bringing fruits year by year. So I think that's a very reassuring fact, and it's all part of what climate leadership is about, is that long-term continuity and actually bringing results. And for all of those who say, well, Europe doesn't, have a big footprint in terms of the global scale, a ton is a ton of carbon, and it's and it has the same value around the planet. So the planet, I'm sure, appreciates these all of these steps, and each ton and kilogram of carbon that gets that doesn't get emitted is certainly welcome in that sense.
James, I think that was so elegantly sort of expressed without adding anything more to that. I think we can say thanks for this week's update and wish our listeners to join us next week for another session.
Yes.
And you can always find us on Spotify, and you can find us on Lundquist webpage. And please share this podcast with the people you think should be part of the broader community that is following these topics. James, many thanks for participation, and I wish you a great weekend.
Thanks to you. Goodbye, everybody. And have a great weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.